All right, it looks like we are live. So I believe we are ready to roll. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 17th regular meeting of the Franklin City Public School Board. I call this meeting to order. Do we have a motion to come out of closed session?
Marshall Williams, Ward 4. I'll move that the school board, having been in a closed session pursuant to a proper motion, come out of the closed session.
We have a motion by Ms. Williams. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, Bob Holt, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4. Aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. Before we move to certification of the school board, I just wanted to make everyone aware, as we just saw his beautiful face, our new Ward 6 representative, Jerry McCreary, is joining us for the first time tonight. So everyone, I'm sure we all extend him a warm welcome and will embrace him into our board. Welcome. Congratulations or condolences, whichever way you may see that, Mr. McCreary.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yes.
All right.
Moving next to item 2.4, certification of our closed session. Do we have a certification from our closed session?
Whereas the Franklin City School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas section 2.2-3712.d of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Franklin City School Board hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Again, moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, Bob Holt, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4. Aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. Next up is 2.5, motions from closed session. I believe we have a few. Would anybody like to make the first motion?
Marshall Williams, Ward 4. Move to approve the personnel agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion? Again, moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, Bob Holt, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4. Aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. All right. Next up, do we have any more motions from closed?
I move that we accept the superintendent's goals for year 2020 and 2021.
All right. We have a motion in regards to the superintendent's goals. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and plenty of seconds. Any discussion? All right. Again, moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, Bob Holt, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4. Aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries as well. Any other motions in regards to closed?
I move to approve the superintendent's leave request with the amended dates.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion? Again, moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, Bob Holt, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries as well. Next up is 2.6, Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Moore, as always, has been gracious enough to provide a flag there for us. So if everyone would, please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, everyone. Next up is 2.7, approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, move to approve the agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a few seconds. Any discussion? Moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays have the same opportunity.
Bob Holt, Ward 1, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries as well. Next up, 2.8 is roll call. Ms. Moore, if you would take the lead.
Robert Holt,
Present.
Amy Phillips,
Present.
Marshall Williams,
Present.
Dr. Andrea Shelton,
Present.
John McCreary,
Present.
Carrie Johnson.
Present.
All right. Everyone's spoken and accounted for. Next up is 2.9, citizens time. Ms. Moore, did we have anyone sign up or submit anything for citizens time?
No, ma'am.
All right. Moving right along then. Next up is item number 3, which is our consent agenda. We don't have a lot under there this time around. We've got four different items. 3.1 is a budget amendment. As you may recall, the last meeting and the one before, we had budget amendments that Mr. Ryder presented to us. Dr. Sterling, would you care to elaborate on that?
On the restrictions that you have before you?
The budget amendment.
Oh, the budget amendment went before the city council and it was approved. We had Ms. Tracy Spence. She did do the presentation for us, so we were pleased to see that. The council had a few questions and we answered them, and well, actually we didn't even have to answer them. Ms. Spence did, and it was approved. So all of the line items from the instructional line was reclassified with a 0 balance. And so we're looking very good. That documentation was submitted to the city for their audit documentations, and everything went well.
Okay, and the budget amendment that is in our consent agenda for this week is just the same thing. It's that readjustment of that local appropriation, correct?
Yes, it's just a readjustment. Yes, exactly what it is. Thank you.
Okay. All right, next item up on the did I hear someone with a question? All right, then next up, 3.2. Tammy, if you could flip back to the agenda. 3.2 is our meeting minutes. We have June 3rd, which we had to go back and approve. They were the ones that we had a question on in regards to the appointment of vice chair. Ms. Moore went through and cleaned that up. There was one item that she needed to adjust on that. So that was cleaned up. We also have the August the 6th minutes from our work session, as well as the August the 20th minutes. And then, of course, our September 3rd, our last meeting.
Can we separate September 3rd from the others?
Pull September 3rd? Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Because I'm going to have to abstain on that one.
Okay.
And I as well.
All right. So we will pull September 3rd and vote on that separately. Next up is 3.3. This is the memorandum of understanding with therapeutic interventions. As you may recall, all of our contracted services, we have a memorandum of understanding with each of those. And Dr. Sterling's team over the last year or so have been going through to make sure that all of these were updated and in place as they should be. So this is the MOU with therapeutic interventions. We also, under 3.4, have an MOU for National Counseling Group, NGC, Inc. Same thing, just for that organization. Are there any other questions in regards to any of the items contained in the consent agenda?
Are these memorandums, is this continuing contracts?
Yes, sir. These are continuing contracts of groups that we currently use for services for students with some
Mental health services.
Yes, mental health
Mental health
services.
Okay, yes, yeah, I did read through them. I was just curious if it was new or continuing.
Dr. Sterling, how many different groups do we utilize? Do you know a number off the top of your head?
Right now we have agreements with 4. We have agreements with 4.
I was thinking it was 5, so
We
I'm
have
glad
4.
you
We
spoke and not me.
have Agape, yeah, Western Tidewater, TI, yes, about 4 right now. That have their certification and everything in. So.
Any other questions?
Have we had an attorney review that MOU?
No, we usually, it's just like an MOU that we would do with Paul DeCamp or TCC, what they would offer, what we would offer. And no, on MOUs, we didn't have one.
Okay, no problem.
Anything else?
I think we need to go back to the 3.2. I'm sorry, can we do that?
Okay.
I needed September 3rd pulled, but I think Mr. Holt might need June 3rd pulled.
Yeah, I'm going to have to abstain June 3rd because I wasn't there.
Okay. So we need to pull June 3rd and September 3rd and vote on them separately.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? All right, so what I would suggest, if the board is okay with that, is that we vote on the June 3rd minutes first, then we vote on the September 3rd second, and then we do the remainder of the consent agenda last.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion in regards to the June 3rd minutes first.
I move that we approve the minutes for June 3rd.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Bob Holt, Ward 1, abstain.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, abstain.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. Next up would be, I would entertain a motion for the September 3rd minutes.
I move that we accept the September 3rd minutes as presented.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Moving by ward again, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays have the same opportunity, as well as abstentions.
Bob Holt, Ward 1, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, abstain.
Carrie Johnson at large, abstain.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. So we have 3-3. All right. So that motion would fail. So we would have to come back to those. Because that would be a tie. All right. So we will put those on the back burner and come back to that. Next up would be the remainder of the consent agenda. Do we have a motion in regards to that?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion? Again, moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, the nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, Bob Holt, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, abstain.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. All right. That moves us down to number 4, which is the superintendent's overview. Dr. Sterling, I will let you proceed if you would so entertain us.
All right, thank you so much. I hope everybody can hear me. We're going to go ahead and move with the superintendent's report. Welcome everybody to this evening's meeting. We're going to start the report with human resource, and that will be given by Dr. Natalie Holloman. Dr. Holloman? There she is.
Yes. Good evening. Yes.
Evening.
The Federal Grants Department will be providing an update. You could advance the slide, please. The OBC Healthcare Foundation is currently accepting proposals for their COVID-19 relief fund. Franklin City Public Schools recently submitted the application to receive funding. And now I'm going to give you a quick overview of the funding. Due to the global, if you could go back, please. Thank you. Due to the global healthcare crisis, the OBC Healthcare Foundation is supporting the needs of the local community through the COVID-19 relief funds. The key areas of funded support are health and safety of nonprofits and support for public schools. Support for public school districts is a key area that will assist organizations in addressing the critical needs for students to ensure that education, health, and human services needs of students and their families are supported. Funding is for 1 year and will not be renewed under the current proposal. So it's a 1-year funding source. Franklin City Public Schools requested $62,921 to provide funding to support the 2 visuals that you have on the right-hand column. Notification of selection will be on October 28th, 2020. And to create the ideal outdoor classroom and extended learning environment, our school division is requesting funding to support the purchase of the following items. Large gazebos to give the outside classroom learning environment a defined location and area. A wood or plastic border around with mulch will add to the defined areas, as you can see in the first visual with the picnic tables, the mulch, the boarding, the border, and the umbrellas. Oval and rectangular picnic tables to provide seating and allow for social distancing while active learning and other impactful sessions are occurring. These outdoor learning classrooms can also be used for mental health sessions, small group sessions, especially now since we have virtual teaching and learning that's occurring. We can possibly have some smaller group sessions, and everything will be spaced out to allow for social distancing requirements. Benches will support the need again for individualized one-on-one and smaller settings. And then the umbrellas that will fit in the center of the picnic tables will allow for instruction and social and emotional sessions to occur throughout various weather conditions. So as we can see, for short term, while we're having or practicing virtual teaching and learning, that this will be very impactful, as well as long term when we return to on-site instruction, that these additional extended learning sessions can be utilized. So again, it provides a great opportunity for us to have some smaller group sessions, one-on-one, and the outdoor classroom that extends the learning environment. Are there any questions?
Dr. Howard, are these outdoor classrooms for all 3 schools or just targeted towards 1 or 2 schools?
Great question. We actually ordered the outdoor classroom extended learning environments for all 3 of our schools.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And actually where the picnic tables are, teachers can have smaller group settings. There would be a rectangular table at the head of the section that allows for the teacher to have a defined area, as well as like dry erase boards, the ideal outdoor classroom setting. And then when you see the gazebo, you can see where we can slide it to let some sunshine in, or if it's an overcloud or very sunny, then we can, just slide it back over. So very active learning environment at all 3 of our school levels.
Okay, great, thank you.
That's great.
Okay, are there any other questions? All right, then thank you so much, Dr. Holloman. Now we're going to move to our financial report, and that will be with our Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations, Mr. Jeff Ryder.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is the last preliminary financial report before the final report is going to be issued sometime in October. So as soon as I had 99.9% of the figures in, I thought I would report out to the board to show you how we ended up for last fiscal year. So this is, when I say it's pre-audit, that means the audit is still underway, and the actual final report won't be due till about at least October 15th. But I expect very few adjustments to these figures. And then for any new board members, on the next slide, I just wanted to remind everyone that we have 5 funds that I report out every month. The general fund, that's the most important one. That's where almost 77% of all the activity happens for the school division. But even more importantly, this is the fund where the city directly sends the school division our appropriation. And if there's any kind of a deficit or a surplus in just this fund, a deficit would have to be covered by the city, and a surplus would have to be taken back by the city. The cafeteria fund is a distinct and separate fund altogether. It has no city involvement whatsoever. Most of the money that flows into that is from the National School Lunch Program, funded by the United States Department of Agriculture, and is legally mandated that we keep this fund separate. Same thing with the textbook fund, only the textbook fund is fully funded by the state, but for some reason that one has to be kept separate as well. grants have, there's a statement that I create that is an accumulation of all 30 or so federal grants, and it's in the same format as the other three. But if anybody wants to see any particular specific grant, we actually keep that detail. But if you want to see it, that's fine. And then, of course, the overall income statement just adds all four of these other ones up, and it's the summation for the entire division. So we'll start with the general fund on the next slide, and that is where I thought I'd give a little perspective on the next slide, please. I thought I'd give a little perspective that what we were going through earlier in this year, you know, just before the pandemic started, this is the January 31st general fund statement. And so you can see down there at the bottom, the operating surplus or deficit. You know, we really, no school division, we really don't want to have a surplus or a deficit. A surplus is bad because, you know, that's money we didn't spend, and a deficit is really bad because then the city has to fund that and cover it. So as you can see, back in January, we were sounding the alarm pretty quickly that we had to start spending money on this income statement to make sure that we came in as close to zero as possible. So you fast forward to June 30th. So 5 months later, here's how okay, next slide. So 5 months later, here's where we ended up. Under the yellow column is just, you know, not 2019 for comparison, but fiscal year 2020, that's where we actually ended up for the year, that middle column, year-to-date June. So we were budgeted to bring in about 13.8 in revenues. We brought 13.658, just shy of goal. Our spending was also just shy of goal, but the most important part there is that, you know, instead of having $1 million surplus or even a deficit, we had about a $50,000 surplus. And that's just in the general fund. So then these other funds on the next slide is, so this is nutrition. And this fund here is a little interesting because the nutrition fund had an excess bank balance back when we started the year. And we actually had to submit to the Department of Education an excess spending plan that said that we have to actually spend this fund into a deficit in order to get the bank balance down to a 3-month average. But for a lot of reasons, we just weren't able to, you know, overspend by that much. So we have a $74,000 deficit, but it was supposed to be $179,000. So good news, bad news, we did better, but we'll probably have to create a excess spending plan in fiscal year 2021. And the textbook fund, it's just it's purely for the textbook adoptions and stuff like that. You know, we budgeted for 95,000. We brought in, you know, 95,000. We only spent about 78. So the balance from the beginning of the year increased by about $17,000, and we're sitting on at June 30th, $144,000 in the textbook fund. This one is, this is the grants, you know, as Dr. Holleran can attest, there's a lot of grants in these numbers here, but, you know, you don't want to get too hung up on the variances because remember, our fiscal year is a snapshot of like 3 different fiscal years that these grants overlap. And so, but it is an interesting coincidence that we brought in about $1,581,000 and we spent about $1,500,000. So it was almost a completely negated net zero for all of the grants combined. So then the final slide is the overall income statement for the division. Did pretty good. You know, the variances again are nothing but the restricted grants, and the grants, you know, a lot of times, you know, a lot of people don't even include them in their overall statement because it just distorts it so much. But, you know, legally, this is the entire financial picture of the division. We were supposed to come in at a net zero and we came in at $4,600. So I thought that was a darn good year for Franklin City.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, does anyone have any questions on any of these statements?
Any questions for Mr. Ryder in regards to the financial statements? I think we're good, Mr. Ryder. Thank you very, very
Alrighty.
much on that.
Thank you very much.
All right, Jeff, I think we're continuing on with you.
Oh, there's an audit update.
We
Okay.
have the presidential executive notice. Is that the next slide?
Oh,
The audit
okay.
update.
And the audit update.
Yep, the audit update shows next.
Okay, let's do the audit update next. The documents are being sent to the auditors on a weekly basis. During this period, not only do we send them documents for them to review and stuff, but there's a lot of reports that we have to create. And the one that I'm up to my neck in is the annual school report, which is an incredibly long and detailed thing that the state of Virginia requests. In prior years, the auditors made it clear that the fixed assets report was the most difficult and it took the longest time to create. And so we've already sent that out. We sent that out September 1st. The auditors were here Wednesday. They were just looking over some transactions with the activity accounts and they're gone already. And so it continues on. Nothing, you know, she didn't have any comments about anything wrong or incorrect or anything like that. So it's still going along. Now this one. So if there's no questions on the audit, this one's kind of hard to explain without smiling, but the President of the United States issued an executive order on August 8th, I believe, stating that he wanted all employers in the entire country to stop withholding Social Security tax from people's wages if they made under $140,000 a year. The net effect of that would be to increase everybody's pay by the amount of taxes they weren't withholding. Problem is, those taxes were simply delayed. People would see a higher paycheck for 3 months, but then they have to turn right around and pay it back in the first quarter of 2021. So it was a bad deal all around. I couldn't find a single company or anyone that was going to actually act on that. Well, the problem, and so I said that the issue was largely forgotten. Well, a week ago or so, I think it was last Sunday, a news place, I never heard of WTKR, but anyway, they ran a story that they stated that the IRS clarified that the companies are obligated not to take out Social Security. So that flipped the whole thing on its back. So I did a whole bunch of investigation very quickly. And by about noon on the day, I think Monday or Tuesday, I finally got, I got onto the Internal Revenue Service website to figure this out. And it's a little humorous. I mean, for accountants, this is humorous. So when you call into a hotline and they say, this is verbatim, please leave a message with your question. Do not leave a message if your question is whether the relief is optional for employers. The answer is yes. So whether we were to begin stopping withholding, it was completely optional. It goes on to say this relief is optional. And then later it says you're not required to utilize the relief. So the conclusion of that thing is that for Franklin City Public School, we are complying with the executive order by exercising our right not to participate. So that's that, in case someone asked you about it.
Very nice.
All right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ryder.
All right, thank you.
All right, so you have the that information. If there are no questions, we're going to move on to curriculum and instruction, and that will be done by Ms. Burkhalter.
Good evening.
There she is.
Good evening, school board chair, school board members, Superintendent Sterling, colleagues, and community. Tonight, we wanted to provide you some updates with some numbers so you can see how we're making strides. And we wanted to start an update with our PreK registration. So as you know, we're allotted 41 slots. We currently have 10 applications pending and 3 slots still to fill. We will continue to have our curriculum specialists lead this initiative to get these 3 slots filled by making phone calls, sending emails. In addition to that, making appointments with parents to come in for social distancing face-to-face if they're struggling with completing any online task. And we've also reached out to one of our partners, Ms. Lorraine Whitehead, who works with Smart Beginnings. And she's going to run another newspaper ad for us to help fill the 3 slots as part of our collaboration with her. Are there any questions where we are with the PreK registration?
Do you have a deadline when those slots are supposed to be filled?
Well, Superintendent Sterling has a deadline for us to have these 3 slots filled by the end of the month, which will of course put us ahead of where when the state wants us to fill those slots. Because the sooner we have the students in working with us, the sooner they can start to make strides on our education.
And Ms. Burkhalter, I know in the past, we've usually quickly filled up all slots. Do you think that we got these available slots mostly because of COVID and parents not wanting to put their kids necessarily in school right now?
I'm sure that has impacted it. Well, we actually received 4 extra slots this year because Dr. Sterling had requested we be allowed to allow more students in, and this was pre-COVID.
Okay.
So they allowed us the 4 slots. Then after COVID, they came back and told everybody, oh, you can have up to like 50. And Ms. Lorraine said, oh, let's go for them. And I said, oh, no, ma'am, because with COVID, we cannot promise we can get those 50 slots. And I'm so glad Dr. Sterling supported that, because Southampton is now trying to fill almost 100 slots, Ms. Lorraine said last week, because with COVID, with the parents, you know, they have their children at home, and now that they would have to support them, it would be too much. So we're really in a great place, and I'm confident we'll get 3 slots filled if you look at our numbers that we presented to you 2 weeks ago.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, and then we wanted to provide you an update on the laptop deployment, since we're continuing to have instruction virtually. And in addition to that, we added a last column because Dr. Sterling wanted to provide you an update on the attendance as well, so that you could see the correlation between the devices we put out for the instruction and then how many students have logged in. And so I know you're asking, well, how are they taking attendance virtually? How are they accounting for that? The student must log in and turn the camera on. They cannot just go to Canvas and do the work. They cannot just show up in Zoom and have their name, their face must be shown via the camera. So you can see here at SP Morton for 2nd through 5th grade, they continue to increase the percentage of computers that are deployed on a daily basis, because parents are allowed to come to the schools by appointment that works for them. And then you can see the attendance number by grade levels in the last column. Since it's new to you, we're making strides with that as well. 2nd grade is at 83% attendance. 3rd grade is at 73% attendance rate, and 4th grade is at 81% attendance rate. And then in addition to increase the numbers, Superintendent Sterling added another layer of support. So the data manager and the interim accreditation specialist is also supporting with the attendance to double check the numbers and how the teachers are going about taking the attendance to make sure it's taken accurately and all students are accounted for. Are there any questions for SP Morton? Okay, we'll continue with JPK. So here again, you see we continue to increase with the number of computers that have been deployed. And then for their attendance, 6th grade is at a 96% attendance rate, 7th grade, 89% attendance rate, and 8th grade, 87% attendance rate. And they have the same plan. Parents can come and get computers deployed by appointment daily at the time that works best for them. And then we have the parent engagement specialist and Mr. Lowe, our attendance truancy officer, supporting them and closing that gap as well.
And lastly, we have Franklin High School. You can see our high schoolers are coming into school, not a problem there. So 9th grade, we have 99% attendance rate. 10th grade, 98% attendance rate. 11th grade, 98% attendance rate. 12th grade, 94% attendance rate. And even though all of our principals are doing a great job, you know, Travis Phelps, he will get out there on that pavement and knock on them doors himself. So he takes great pride in reporting those numbers on Monday to Dr. Sterling. And for him to reach his 100% accreditation rate, he sends daily no-show lists to Dr. Lowe and Coffee's central office staff so he can reach that 100%. Are there any questions? That concludes my report, if not.
I have a question. This is Jerry at Ward 6. Just looking at 10th grade, for example, 81 out of 80 is 85. That's the number of students in that grade. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then it says pending 5. So is that 5 students that do not have laptops?
Great question. And I know Mr. Phelps was like, oh, she didn't share that. Great question, new school board member. So Mr. Phelps actually has 100% of his computers deployed. When you see pending for FHS, and that's why he has noted as a footnote, some of the school computers at FHS did not need to be deployed because they received a CSEP computer if they're at CSEP, or if they're attending the governor's school, they received a computer through that. Or the parent may have said, we have our own computer, we don't want the school computer. So Franklin High School is the only school that actually has 100% deployment. Where you see pending numbers is because those students have devices and they have refused the Franklin City Public Schools device.
And is that same for the SP Morton?
No.
And,
No,
for all,
sir.
okay.
Okay, this is Johnson at large. I have
Yes.
a question about 11th grade.
Yes. Ms.
Are you
Johnson,
Instead of
there?
100%. Instead of 100%.
Ms. Johnson, are you there?
Oh, the 63 out of the
I am.
63.
yes, that should be 100%. I guarantee you.
Awesome.
Yes, thank you for that. Mr.
Because
Phelps,
I mean, we should give 100% where 100% is due.
well, Mr. Phelps likes to keep
It's
changing his
numbers day.
Yes, Dr. Sterling will give a deadline and I'll give the deadline, but Travis likes to give minute-to-minute numbers to you all up to the school board. So yes, that should be 100%, and that's on my error. I didn't catch that. Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Any other questions for Ms. Burkhalter in regards to the laptop deployment?
You know,
Thank
some
you.
schools I'm reading don't even have laptops yet. So we're way ahead. Not only that we have them, but they're using them. So congratulations.
Yes, this is a team effort. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
You too, Ms.
You
Burkhalter.
too.
Thank you. Excellent report. Very proud and pleased with those numbers. Now we'll have our Director of Special Education, of Exceptional Education, Ms. Norletta Edmond. Ms. Edmond?
Good evening to everyone. Tonight, I'd like to review with you the results-driven accountability for the Exceptional Education Department. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, requires each state to report to the public state and school division level data, and to report if the state and the divisions met state targets described in the state's Special Education State Performance Annual Plan and State Performance Plan and Annual Performance Report. The information that I'm about to cover is based on the data on the division that was submitted for the 2018-2019 school year. Franklin City Public Schools Part B Results-Driven Accountability Matrix for the fiscal year of 2018 in the area of compliance, the Results-Driven Accountability RDA and determination. The total points that were available are 40 40 total points. We earned a total of 37 points, which gave our total performance at 93%. The results and compliance overall scoring for federal fiscal year 2018 in the areas of determination, the total points available, points earned, and our score. The results for the total points available are 20. Results of our points earned was 17, which earned us a score of 85%. In the area of compliance, the total available points were 20. We earned 20 points and earned a score of 100% compliance for the fiscal year of 2018. I am happy to report, as a result, Franklin City Public Schools is in the green and we meet all requirements. Very excited about this. This is our third year, I think, that we have met requirements. Dr. Sterling received our letter to confirming our status, and you will see a copy of that letter attached to this presentation for your review. And again, we're very pleased with our performance, and we are striving to make it continue to go further for the next fiscal year. Any questions?
No questions, Miss Edmonds, but just want to say congratulations. That's some truly hard work, and your team has done an amazing job.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It does take a team, and we're really excited. Thank you. That concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, school board members. I appreciate your time, and that concludes the superintendent's report as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sterling, and thank you very much to your team as well. Always very informative. If we could pause there for just a second, I want to double back to our consent agenda to the September 3rd minutes. I just wanted to make sure that I did have the count right on that vote, because I had a 3, 4, and 3 abstentions. I just want to make sure that I do have the abstentions correct. That was Ms. Johnson, Mr. McCreary, and Mr. Holt. That correct?
For what day?
September 3rd.
No, I was yay for that one.
Okay, so you were a yay. And Ms. Johnson and Mr. McCreary were abstentions. So actually that motion passes. We had Ms. Williams, Dr. Shelton, Mr. Holt, and myself as ayes, and we had Ms. Johnson and Mr. McCreary as abstentions. So that motion did carry. I just wanted to go back and double check on that and correct that. So Ms. Moore, if you would make record of that. Now we'll move back down to item number 5, business by school board members. Does anyone have anything to share with their fellow board members?
The Tidewater News had in their last edition, I'm thinking an article about virtual learning, and it talked about all the schools, and I thought our schools came out really well in the way that was portrayed. The kids looked excited. It gave the impression we all knew what we were doing. We were doing a good job. And I didn't see that come through in some of the other school divisions. So I was very pleased with that.
Yes, and I think the addition of Ms. Scott to Dr. Sterling's team has been very beneficial. There has been a lot of information funneled to our local paper that, and information is being conveyed in a very timely manner. And I think that's helping get the word out to the community, and helping shine that positive light on the division where it is so duly justified. And there was an article as well inside the paper on virtual learning at Franklin High School. I saw that as well. Anything else by any board members? I will just add, last week, the Appomattox Regional Governors School Board did meet. They have started back, of course, virtually on last Tuesday. They actually had freshman orientation on Tuesday. They seem to be off to a good start, had a few technical difficulties, which all divisions have with starting back virtually. But everything seems to be going extremely well. Nothing really new to report from that board going on with that school as of right now. So just wanted to let you guys know that. Anything else?
I just wanted to commend Dr. Sterling and her team for all of their efforts that they've taken in the virtual learning, because I see that they covered all aspects, especially the child care aspect. And I know in some divisions, unfortunately, many children are left at home because parents have to go to work and there hasn't been a provision made for daycare or any kind of care for the children. So thank you for thinking about or crossing all your T's and dotting all your I's where the children are concerned and assisting them in moving forward during this time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
God.
And I'd like to add too, as well, to the staff. I know we probably don't have a lot of the staff with us on the meeting tonight, but they may go back and watch the video. And I just want to publicly just put it out there because we're in week 3 now. And these teachers have really done an amazing job with transitioning these students to virtual learning. As I said in our work session, I am in, if you want to say, the fortunate position where I have by proxy been a part of 4 different classes every day since school started back, because I do have a student in the division. And you would not think from overhearing or seeing those classes that virtual learning is anything new. These teachers have really grasped this concept, taken it and run with it. And these students have as well. I know it has been a challenge, and I know there are occasional still hiccups because, you know, you can't control what happens in that type of environment. But everyone has been open-minded through this process. Everyone has been understanding through this process, and they really are doing some creative things in some of these classes. I am impressed with these teachers. So I just want to give them a shout out and say, great job. And I know it can get overwhelming, but all of our staff is doing amazing with this. If there's nothing else by business of school board members, then we will move on to 5.2. which is the WHRO impact statement. Every year, WHRO comes and gives us this wonderful presentation where they talk about how that partnership that we have with WHRO is beneficial to our students and to our community and to our school division. And this is that impact statement from WHRO. I hate that they are not here because I always enjoy hearing from them. Of course, one of the things that WHRO has added on that I will notate within the past year that, of course, our students do have access is they actually have some virtual learning sessions that they air on WHRO. They did it in the spring, and I think, Dr. Sterling, I'm not sure if you know or not, I think it was this week or it might be next week that they're supposed to start those back up again.
I thought it was actually next week, but
okay.
we continuously use WHRO with our geometry and algebra classes at JP King. We utilize that, and we utilize their STEM and literacy van at SP Morton. So we are starting to see the benefits of WHRO. And we are fully taking advantage of everything they have to offer, and they're very responsive. The educational platforms are very high quality and rigorous. And I'm excited that the board is still considering being a partner with WHRO. Excellent program.
And of course, Virtual Virginia as well.
And Virtual Virginia as well, exactly, yes.
So, Dr. Sterling, you do not need a motion in regards to that, correct?
Oh, yes, because we pay
Okay.
funds to that.
Okay.
It's like, I think it's $1,200 or $1,300 every
Okay.
year. It's like a continuous payment, but we still have to approve the agreement.
So you need a motion to approve the impact statement and agreement with WHRO.
For WHRO.
Do we have a motion in regards to that?
I so move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, then moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye. And of course, nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, Bob Holt, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Mrs. Phillips, I missed the motion because my phone did something, so I didn't hear the motion.
The motion was to approve the impact statement and the annual agreement with WHRO.
Okay. Aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That is approved. Well, maybe in the spring when everything hopefully gets to somewhat back to normal, maybe he can come out and have that conversation with us then, because I do so love having that conversation with him.
Okay,
All right.
I'll tell them.
Yeah, the next up is 5.3, important dates to remember. Of course, our next meeting happens to fall on a day that is actually a teacher work day for the division and for professional development. That'll be Thursday, October the 1st. And like I said, we do have our regular school board work session that evening. As of right now, per our decision back at the beginning of this fiscal year work session, we will meet in face-to-face within, we'll use council chambers if it is available. If not, we'll make arrangements for a properly socially distanced location. And then, of course, the Virginia School Board Association Annual Convention, which will be virtual, is November the 18th through the 20th. Registration is still open. And as I said previously, let Ms. Moore know if you would like to attend. Dr. Sterling and I will be presenting during that. And you do have access to all of the sessions that are conducted that day, not just the one per time block. So that is one of the differences with this. Also, I just wanted to mention VSBA, you may want to go out and take a look at the webinars that they have. They have several webinars that are coming up. Of course, next week, they do have the Legislative Advocacy Conference that is virtual as well. But there are several webinars that are coming up over the next several weeks that VSBA has that may be of interest. So I just wanted to throw that out there to you. And I think as far as dates, that is really it. We are in our, I hate to say quiet time, we're gearing up towards budget season. So this is our moment to catch our breath before we jump into that. All right. If there is nothing else, we are moving to our favorite part of the evening for many of us, adjournment. So if I do not hear any objections, I call this meeting adjourned. Any objections? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Mr. McCreary, again, welcome to the team. We are more than happy to have you as part of our team. I'll be reaching out to you sometime in the next few days so we can get together and I can bring you up to speed on some things going on.
Very good.
That way you're a little more prepared and ready as we have some conversations.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a
All
great
right.
evening.
Thank you. You too. Good night.
Good
Thank you.
night.